All right, guys, we're back with another episode of Inside the Locker Room, and there's a lot going on in this sports world. NFL news, we got a lot of players holding out. Shamar Stewart, Trey Hendrickson, Terry McLaurin. What is going on? Plus, A-Rod just got signed to the Steelers. We kind of been talking and speculating that for weeks now. Plus, NBA talks. The finals are going on right now. Games 1 through 3. What are the Thunder doing wrong? How are they down 2-1? And can they come back? And what are the Pacers doing right? And then we're going to jump into the MLB. As the Blue Jays continue to rise in the standings, the Mariners sadly are dropping in the standings. And we got a lot to unpack here. Plus, our last segment, the NHL Stanley Cup. A lot going on right now. But first, let's get started into our NFL segment. A-Rod getting signed with the Steelers. We speculated that throughout this whole offseason. And we even had Flacco going to the Steelers at one point. But ultimately, Aaron Rodgers is in yellow and or black and yellow. So first, Benji, I want to get your opinion on this. How do you see Aaron Rodgers fitting in Pittsburgh? Do you think this is better for the Steelers, or do you think this is worse for the franchise?
I think it's definitely better for the Steelers. People were saying that you can act like you don't like Aaron Rodgers. That's just your opinion. But the fact of the matter is that Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback than Mason Rudolph. So they definitely got a huge upgrade there. This is after months of speculation. We first saw him practicing with DK on an open field. And now he finally gets the deal done with Mike Tomlin and the Steelers. So it's going to be interesting to see how this kind of pans out. But also shout out to A-Rod as well. Also because a reporter tried to also get him to kind of jab at his previous organization, being the New York Jets, but he refused and saying that he's, locked in on Mike Tomlin and he really likes what he's hearing in those meetings and in those rooms. So we're just gonna see. Adam, what did you think about this Aaron Rodgers signing? He finally gets it done. Bro's finally touching grass. What do you think?
Y- Yeah, I think it's good for the Steelers overall. I think it gives them a better chance of making the playoffs, but I still don't think it's going to happen. They have a really tough schedule. I ran the numbers again before the show, and I had them as like a 2-3 win team before. Now I got them 6-11 after the signing. So Mike Tomlin's winning record streak would still be lost, and they definitely wouldn't be making the playoffs at that rate. Maybe the biggest thing though is just mentoring Will Howard, and he's Aaron Rodgers has already said publicly that he's going to do everything he can to try to teach the kid everything he can. So I think it's good for Will Howard because I wanted him to sit out at least a year, so now he can learn behind a top 10 quarterback all time.
Facts.
What are your thoughts, Michael?
Yeah, I like the signing as well. My main concern about Aaron Rodgers has been he just recovered from his Achilles injury. I think it was last year or the year before last. And the main question that I have for Aaron Rodgers is even though he's 41, I've talked about this previous times that it doesn't matter about the age. It's just it's the physicality. Does Aaron Rodgers still have that? Even though he's been out for a good minute, not long, but he's been out a good minute. But I think it's a good sign for Pittsburgh, and it's a good chance for Aaron Rodgers, on a 1 year deal, just to see where he's at, and be a mentor to, like you said, Mason Rudolph, and be a good addition for Mike Tomlin. I still don't think the Steelers might get like 6 or 7 wins or five, but I don't see them being too much of a threat as far as right now. But I like to sign it, and I wish Aaron Rodgers the best, man. Regardless.
Yeah, I know for me, in my opinion, well, I wanted I first let me say this. I was an advocate for Aaron Rodgers going to Pittsburgh at first, but the all it was taking a little bit a minute for him to get signed.
Hmm?
So I kind of shifted back and I started saying, "Hey, let Will Howard start." And I really wanted to see Will Howard start. But now let me say this: with Aaron Rodgers now on the team, I think this is good for Will Howard because you get the chance to really mentor him and really like sit there and watch behind the vet, like how Jordan Love sat behind Rodgers. So I think this is better for Will Howard. But also, let me say this with the Steelers organization. I already had the Steelers like not winning too many games. I think I probably had them at 2 or 3 wins. I think with A Rod, it probably brings up to like Adam said, 5 or 6 wins. I still don't have them making the playoffs. Their schedule is just insanely tough, and I just think their roster just cannot compete with these other teams as of right now. On paper, cannot compete with these other teams. I think I like the signing for one reason. It makes Will Howard. It can possibly make Will Howard better, getting to learn behind Aaron Rodgers.
For sure.
Let me say this: we thought it was going to happen with Zach Wilson sitting behind Aaron Rodgers, and that didn't pan out well. But I will say this: Will Howard is another young QB that has opportunity to pan out, learning behind Rodgers. All in all, I don't have the Steelers still making the playoffs with Aaron Rodgers. I think this is going to be Aaron Rodgers' last career season for real, and just let him ride it out. And
One year delay
yeah,
it is.
yeah, 1 year just let him just write it out in black and yellow. But another free agency signing that we recently saw was Nick Chubb to the Texans.
Let's
And
go.
I'm gonna say this before I pass to Mike to Benji. I made a post about it. Could Nick Chubb revitalize his career in Houston? And it's like to me, it's a yes and a no. Because it just all depends on how the Texans offense performs with him. Because sometimes you get these players and they don't fit well into the offensive scheme or they don't perform well in that offense. But I'm hoping that for Nick Chubb that he can perform well in this. Benji,
Definitely rooting for Nick Chubb. Everybody loves Nick Chubb, I feel like, and it was great seeing him on the practice field already with CJ Stroud. And like you said before, it's kind of a yes or no kind of a situation here because we don't exactly know how he's going to fit into the scheme, especially with running back Joe Mixon being in the mix as well. I believe Joe Mixon is more of like a pass catching running back compared to Nick Chubb. So maybe Nick Chubb can be that kind of 1-2 punch after Mixon or even before Mixon too, because we can't forget also, Joe Mixon's injuries in the past. So, I mean, hopefully that doesn't repeat in the future. But it's just going to be interesting to see how Nick Chubb kind of makes his comeback here. And I'm rooting for bro. Adam, what did you think about the Nick Chubb signing to the Texans? Is this another weapon yet again for CJ Stroud?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's definitely another weapon, and more importantly, it's great depth. Joe Mixon's definitely still going to be the guy. He had a crazy good season, bar
Hmm.
other than injuries last year.
Hmm.
So I think, like you said, 1-2 punch. Now Nick Chubb can just be that guy to come in anytime Joe Mixon needs a little needs a little rest. Um, and for a playoff team or what a team that should make the playoffs, and a lot of people even have as like a dark horse Super Bowl candidate. Um, for a team like that, you need as much depth as you can, especially for a position like running back, which is generally one of the most injured positions in the league. So I think it's a great signing. It was a fairly cheap signing. Mostly, it's like not much risk, a lot of potential reward, especially if we
Usually,
do
yeah.
have an injury to Joe Mixon, he can just take over instantly. They still have Damian Pierce, and they got Woody Marks in the draft. So, if anything, for people playing fantasy football, it kind of just puts a damper on the Woody Marks hype going into the season. But yeah, I like the signing a lot. What are your
yeah,
thoughts,
and
Michael? Or
Yeah,
sorry,
I
Juice. Either way.
just
did
I'm
you
gonna
want
just I'm just gonna throw this in 1 second. I like how you mentioned Adam, about the Texans got a lot of depth at that running back position. You still got Damian Pierce, you still got Woody Marks. So even if, say Joe Mixon or Nick Chubb got hurt, these players can, and I think these are all capable, at least solid running backs, in my opinion. So I really do like the fact that the Texans did get Nick Chubb for a cheap deal at that too, because I still do think Nick Chubb can perform well. And I think with that Texas offense, he can perform well. But like I said before, it just depends on how the player fits into that offensive scheme. But Michael, your opinion?
Yeah, I actually like the signing, and to be honest with you, I'm gonna be honest. Like I forgot all about Nick Chubb, and when the Texas signed, I was like, oh dang, like I thought he was signed already to somebody. But I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be honest here. I like the signing. It gives Nick Chubb a chance to uh restart. Get his foot back on the field. He has good ability. He has great power. He has great strength. He has great size for a running back. But honestly, I think um he's going to be used as a backup to Joe Mixon. Let's say Joe Mixon get hurt, right? You get Nick Chubb in there, and then plus you said the depth in that running back position. It's a lot of depth there. And then plus you got to think about it too. He might be used in the red zone, honestly, with the Texas offense. He could be the red zone threat for the Texans. Give
That's a good
Joe
point.
Mixon, a lot of chances to take a breather because you never want to injure both of your running backs, but at the same time, you gotta have a running back that can be a red zone threat if Joe Mixon can't. You get what I'm saying? So it's just more like where can Nick Chubb fit in the Texans offense, and will he be productive? Because like you said, Benji, and I'm with you on that because there's been a lot of players who come to big name players who come to these teams and they show no production at all, and it's just a waste of signing. But I don't think Nick Chubb is going to be a waste of signing. I think if anything, he's going to be a big tradition to that Texas running back room with Joe Mixon. It's a scary running back room for sure. Let's not sleep on Nick Chubb like he ain't got it. The brother is a good size and he's hard to tackle, especially when you get the knees pumping. So,
For sure.
but yeah, honestly, I actually like the signing, and I really hope Nick Chubb can improve at this new team with a new journey. It just we gotta see where it goes from here.
Yeah, so before we get into the main holdout that is getting everybody's attention right now, just in general, what is y'all's like thoughts on these players holding out? For instance, Trey Hendrickson, Terry McLaurin, for instance. I believe TJ Watt is holding out as well. Yeah, so yeah, just what is y'all's thoughts on, these just big name players holding out? And like I'm gonna say this first. You got to play your star. You got to pay your star players. Yeah,
Yep.
I'm just gonna say that you pay your star players. You always want to make sure your star players are happy because they can go to. We saw Saquon Barkley go to Philadelphia and win the
Yep.
NFC East, win the Super Bowl. So pay your star
Yep.
players. You never know what they could turn around, take more money from another team, and go win a ring somewhere else. And you don't want to miss out on that. And I'm gonna say this about Trey Hendrickson real quick. Led the league in sacks 2 years in a row.
Yep.
And I really wonder, I really questions me what is going through the Bengals front office and like their GM's mind is like you got to pay this man. He's been productive. The stats can back it up, and you're not paying him. But now if he goes and walks, y'all are going to look like the losers in this situation. When honestly they look like the losers already by not paying him. But I just
Hmm.
want to get y'all's general overview of all these players sitting out.
So the first name I'm going to mention is Terry McLaurin from the Washington Commanders. I personally feel like he definitely deserves a new contract. I mean, he was on this team before they were even good. Some flashes for years and years, and we just know what Scary Terry could do. And plus, also with quarterback Jaden Daniels, like, why wouldn't you want to keep his wide receiver one? Sure, you had Dynamy Brown have a good playoff run last year, and there are
He's on
other
the Jaguars
pieces
now
on
too.
the yeah, exactly. So there are other pieces on this offense. So you lose Dynamy Brown, so now you have your true number one now. I'm not saying that Dynamy Brown was going to be a wide receiver one or anything, but if pieces are leaving and you still have pieces on the team, then pay the pieces on your team. And for example, for the Bengals situation, we'll get a little bit into Shamar Stewart later. But for Trey Hendrickson, like you said, Deuce, it's just they're gonna look like losers in this situation for not paying, people that are actually producing because it's even homegrown talent. These players have been on these teams for years and years, and you know contracts aren't the most easiest things to get done sometimes, but if both sides are willing to work, or actually, sorry, if one side is willing to work, being the player, and then the team is not, then it's kind of a question of, well, where's all your money at then?
hmm Yeah, I mean, so I saw a stat yesterday, the day before, and Trey Hendrickson gets paid, I think, $22 million a year. You just had Miles Garrett become the new highest paid defensive end at $40 million a year. But when he's matching his sack total or even just barely going above it, like that doesn't compute. Like he's making like about half as much money as the other top pass rushers. You even have some people like Rashawn Gary, who only had 7.5 sacks last year, who's getting paid like I think $32 million. So like I just saw a list of like 10 pass rushers that are all getting paid between 25 and $40 million that all have had less sacks. And Trey Hendrickson could be a little bit better in the run game, but when you're talking about like raw pass rushing metrics, like he's up there with the best of them and surpasses most of them. So you got to pay that guy. And I mean, it's crazy how still relevant this is, but like one of our first podcast episodes, I just broke down the Bengals and how they could have signed players earlier. And the Cowboys sometimes also fall into this trap, like with Micah Parsons, of not signing him like 1-2 years earlier. And they could have got Trey Hendrickson at one point, like long term, for like $20 to $25 million per year. And it's just it pays to lock down someone for like 4 to 5 years because we have natural inflation, and you're always going to have players resetting the market. So it's a big red flag. And I mean, we'll get into Shamar Stewart again in a second, but like if you lose Trey Hendrickson and you're having Shamar Stewart hold out, who's they just drafted 17th overall, like it just like honestly, what are they doing? I will say the one thing they do well is they sign their offensive players. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are locked down, but it puts you in like a financial stalemate, so to speak. So from the Commanders' perspective, they need to lock down Terry McLaurin. He's not Jamar Chase, but I'd say he's a top 15, maybe even top 10 wide receiver in the league. He had a career year last year. He's a big part of why Jaden Daniels had the crazy rookie emergence and season that he did. So you got to sign him. You got to lock him down. And I don't know if you guys want to talk about this at all, but one other player that got signed is J.K. Dobbins, who just got signed to the Broncos. So they have R.J. Harvey, who was just taken in the second round. He's probably the favorite to get the early carries, but I've already heard that J.K. Dobbins might be like the passing down specialist, and he's hungry.
Najee
Like he's now he got signed by the division rival Broncos, and I like saw a quote about something about like how the Chargers didn't sign him, and he's very hungry to play the Chargers. I'll just say that.
And don't forget about Najee Harris either. He's also in that running back room now. Go ahead.
Is Micah Parsons? Has he signed his deal?
Not yet.
Okay. See. Let me break this down real quick, and I'm gonna try to be quick with this. There are some players who either don't deserve a big high contract or they do deserve a big high contract. And I'm gonna use my running back here, Alvin Kamara, for example. There are some players who don't really care about the money. All they want to do is stay with that team. When a player is loyal to a city, he don't give a dang about the contract. And honestly, not saying, and there are some players who deserve a contract, like Michael Parsons. He deserves a big contract. Trey Hendrickson. I love that guy. When you kind of hate that we even let him go, because when he was the Saint, I loved him on that D line.
Mm-hmm.
But he's still killing over at Cincinnati. Give that man his contract. You cannot see him and tell me that Trey Hendrickson, come on now, that man is like getting over 10 plus sacks every year? Like,
17 and a half last year.
That's what I'm saying. He's getting over 10 sacks, and this dude is a dog. Like he is a big, scary machine. He come out that line, it's over. And I'm gonna add Michael Parsons to that. There are some players who deserve a big contract signing, like you just said, Adam, 4 to 5 year contract. I'm with that, but I think what these players need to understand is that in the NFL nowadays, cap space is a big priority to these organizations. And I think what the players are starting to see is that, some players care more about the money than their production, because sometimes your production is going to get you more money. And there are a lot of players who just either don't put in the time and don't put in the work, and they ask and demand more money. How can you ask for more money and you don't put in the work? You're not doing anything to help us out. So no, you don't deserve that big contract. But guys like Trey Hendrickson, Michael Parsons, Shamar Stewart, Terry McLaurin, Jalen Ramsey, all these guys deserve big contracts because they're dogs. They're ready to kill. They're ready to hunt. And when a player's ready to hunt, I'm gonna sign that brother to at least until you deal where it's good enough. But like I said, these players need to understand that there are some organizations who just can't sign you because of the cap space, or there are some organizations that don't want to give you that money because you're not putting the work, or there are some organizations who just, don't see you as a future player. And I hate to say that, but you got to be careful with these organizations because some of these organizations they choose favoritism and they'll just whatever player they like they're gonna give it to them. And I just think honestly it's sad to me, but I understand why these players are holding out. But sometimes you gotta pull an AK just be like, you know what, I don't give a damn about the money. I just want to play for my city because I want to be here forever, and I care less about the money. And I just don't want these players to get too money hungry, and you pay all these players this money, and they don't have no production behind it. Because we've seen players do that before. A lot of key players have been signed, they don't do nothing, nothing at all. And I think we can all agree because we all had different teams, we all had these big name players that come to these teams, they don't do shoot. So,
Le'Veon.
Jarius Bird, Brandon Brown, I can just go on and on with these. But to somehow listen, I understand the holdouts. But in reality, if you're not putting in the work, don't demand all this money. You're just gonna keep it like that, bro.
Yeah, and Michael, interesting that you say that some of these people, don't live up to the standards. And I'm not trying to throw no shade at nobody, but a few years ago, the Giants, signed Daniel Jones to, and I got it written down, a 4-year, $160 million deal. And although he didn't hold out, you signed him to that, like, all that money, and he just looked worse than he did before, which eventually led
Literally.
to him getting cut.
And exactly that's my point. That's exactly my point.
Yeah, so I get the point where, like, when we say, like, some people need to be paid and some people don't. And I think just in this sense, players like Terry McLaurin and Trey Hendrickson, TJ Watt, they need to be paid because the stats from last
The
year,
stats
season
speak for
before,
itself.
it
Yeah,
speaks for itself. But,
like many years.
there's times, and I just always use the Daniel Jones example. There's times where a player can look good for 1 year, sign a mega contract, and look horrible, and then that
Yep.
sets your franchise cap space back a little bit because you're paying all these
Yep.
players money.
Yep.
But with Shamar Stewart, I'm gonna say this. You know, um, let me go back to the draft. I think, in my opinion, and this is no shade on the Bengals, but I initially said I think the Bengals drafted Shamar Stewart a little bit too high, in my opinion. Think his production at I'm not at
Texas
Texas
A&M.
A&M, yeah, was it didn't compare to the other players at that position. But I still thought he was a first round talent. I just had him going later in the first round.
Mhm.
I'm gonna say this.
But
I'm gonna say this about Shamar Stewart. You're a first round draft pick, brother, man, and I understand you want to get paid a certain amount of money. I get that, but bro, like you haven't started the season yet, bro. Like you have to take what you can get. And in the words of my mom, I'm gonna use my mom's words. You can't demand more money when you just started. You cannot demand. Like I understand. You're a first round draft pick. You feel like you deserve a big contract like all these other players. But then again, like I said, what is the Bengals cap space? Can they pay you that much money like they're paying all the other rookies? But then again, bro, you got to put in the work. Not saying you're not, but at the same time, I'm on the Bengals front office. If the guy's putting in the work, pay him, pay him what he deserves. If you're gonna pay all these other rookies that big amount of money, make sure you do Shamar Stewart the same way because he deserves that. Yes, he's a first round draft pick, but bro, to be honest with you, you gotta put in the work. Not saying you aren't, not saying you haven't, but you cannot demand a big contract when you're just starting. You have to let your production do the talking. And if they don't pay you and your production is doing the talking, then say something. But if they're paying you a contract where it's decent to start off, I would take that. Sometimes you gotta
That,
take
that
what you can give.
that's the problem is the Bengals are
yeah,
trying to not pay him what a first round pick's worth. And more
Yeah.
importantly, they're trying to basically like void his guaranteed money if an injury arises or maybe
That's
like
what I
if the
heard.
and
production's not there, which
I'm gonna
is
say
That's what I
this.
heard.
that's just a loss on the Bengals again.
That's
I'm gonna say
sad.
this. And yeah, I very well believe that Shamar Stewart is first round talent. But like man, the Bengals front office got to stop being cheap, and you see this issue because you pay your top three guys, Burrow, Chase, and Higgins,
Yep.
all your money, and
Yep.
now you don't got no money to pay your other players. And and I believe in the term defense wins championships. You cannot win if your defense is not good. If the offense
Good.
isn't good, you can't win. If the defense isn't good, you can't win. And if you're not paying, and let me say this, Adam mentioned earlier, Shamar Stewart was your Trey Hendrickson replacement. And the Bengals front office tried to be sneaky and cheap and throwing this clause in the contract that says any suspension or injury is your guaranteed money is going to get voided for all 4 years. This has never we haven't seen this in no first round picks contract. And last year and the previous Bengals first round picks, they didn't get this same type of clause in their contract, which is weird that all of a sudden this is thrown into the contract after T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are signed to their extensions. With that being said, this is why when you said that players you should start playing players a little bit early before their contract expires, I fully will agree with that because you could have got them for very much cheaper, let's say 1 or 2 years ago, opposed to this year because the market is always rising. Every year the cap is just only going to continue to get higher and higher, and players are going to continue to keep resetting the market.
Exactly.
So this is a loss on the Bengals front office. One, not paying Shamar Stewart. Two, one not paying Trey Hendrickson. Then two, going and drafting Shamar Stewart, knowing that you're going to throw something into this clause that a player may not agree with.
Yeah.
So I'm very much well on Shamar Stewart's side. And I'm gonna say this. At first, looking back when we first talked about it weeks ago, I was like, okay, yeah, this is just a rookie, this is just a rookie with, maybe who believes that he should get paid first round pick money, but is asking for too much. But as the weeks went on and you really start to look into the situation, you see that this is just another story of the Bengals front office being cheap and doing their players dirty. And let me say this, if your homegrown talent isn't happy with your front office organization, that says a lot. But I'm going to say this. I've heard rumors and reports that Shamar Stewart could possibly go back in the draft, or he could get picked up as
He
a free
should.
agent.
I think he
And
should.
I'm going to say this.
Well, it's
I
like, why
think-
do you draft him in the first round if you're not prepared to pay the guy?
But what I have a feeling that the Bengals are going to try to do is trade him, so they don't. So I'm feeling that they're going to try to trade him. So like I said, I'm not good with the contract. So by the feeling they're going to try to trade him, so the contract can not be so they don't lose as much as. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah,
But-
and Hendrickson, they've already there's no negotiations happening, so he's gonna be gone.
And I'm gonna say this:
who's gonna
why-
push the quarterback on that team?
Why are the Bengals, if they know they're not going to sign Hendrickson, because this is probably going to go into August, if we're being honest, and no talks are progressing, why is he still in your roster? Why haven't you released him? Why haven't you traded him? It almost seems like you're playing with the dude's emotions at the point by just holding him on the roster and not giving him no contract, because you can sit there for so many days and make it hurt and knowing that you want a contract as a top defensive end and not get paid. So, and this is why I keep saying I think the Bengals are just one of the cheapest franchises, and they're right along with the Cowboys in terms of cheap. You can't, and I'm gonna end it with this: you cannot win if your star players are not happy. There's nobody on that defense to rush the quarterback on the skill set that Trey Hendrickson has, and possibly that Shamar Stewart has. We don't know yet, but that's just two big losses for the Bengals, and they're gonna have to eat that up when the season comes around. But honestly, the Bengals are not going to win. In my opinion, are not going to win a championship or a Super Bowl in the next 1 to 5 years if they don't even get if they don't get that defense fixed and get that salary cap issue fixed, because that's your main issue is the salary cap. You can't do nothing until you get that fixed. Contracts got to be restructured whether you like it or not.
Joe Burrow was almost perfect.
No, I was just gonna say
Joe Burrow was almost perfect and didn't matter. Sorry, go ahead, Benji.
No, I was just gonna say that the Bengals defense was already a problem, and now they're losing more pieces, and they're just not adding more. So
and they just released Jermaine Pratt too. Demetrius Knight Jr., who they got in the second or third round, he's gonna be a starter right away. But they're dropping like flies, and I think the Bengals started 1-5 last year, so it's with Joe Burrow being still one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL.
Maybe they're just scarred from Eli Apple.
I mean, maybe
Always,
because
always
we were
back to
scarred.
Eli Apple.
We were
Love
scarred.
that guy.
We were scarred. We were scarred with Eli Apple, but I'm for real. We were. And it's just, it kind of reminds me that you have to be careful with the teams you go to because it might look good on paper, but at the same time, it just really depends on the organization
Yeah,
because
it
they
depends on
can
the
say
team.
that, yeah, it can, they can claim they're happy for you when they pick you, and then when you get on that field, it's a whole different story. You have to really watch how these GMs because sometimes these GMs will play with these top talent players' emotions. And Shamar Stewart, Trey Hendrickson, they're one of those guys because these guys all deserve a contract. And at the same time, why are y'all holding out Trey Henderson? Trey Henderson is one of the top 10 D lines on your team, and for some reason, y'all not paying this guy. This
They
guy is
can't pay him.
and like you said, they're being cheap and they're being slick. That's what this is.
To me, it's just like, why are y'all holding him on the on the
Exactly.
roster if
If you're not gonna
y'all
sign
can't
him,
sign him?
Well,
right?
he's
I'm
under contract for this year, but he says he's going to hold out into the regular season, so that's why
Yeah,
it
and
gets
like and
messy.
me
But
He'll
see,
lose
and
money
me
too if he does that, like
and
two
I'm
hundred
like,
thousand per game.
and I just can't. I don't know what is going through the Bengals front office and GM's mind when you just think like, okay, if I have no idea or no plan to pay this dude and he's not going to play, why is he still in the roster?
like
So
this was their plan all along when they picked Shamar Stewart. I think this was their plan all along, and I
yeah,
think
Shamar Stewart was supposed to be the replacement, and now he's
we're
holding
starting to
out.
see it. We're starting to see it. It's right in front of our faces because why, like you just said, why keep Trey Henderson on the roster if you're not gonna sign him? This was a setup the whole time. And I'm calling it like it is right now. We can see it in black and white. This is a setup because Trey Henderson, like Adam said, yeah, he only got 1 year deal, stuff like that, holding out. To be honest, I don't want him to hold out because if you're gonna lose all that money, you might as well just at least try to hold out to at least this year, and then if they don't sign you, you can go. But this is a setup, and I feel like the front office is playing games. Y'all need to stop playing games. If y'all want to win, stop playing games. Sign these guys because if you lose both of these guys on your D line and Shamar Stewart goes back in the draft,
They're
your
cooked.
season's gonna end, and somebody is gonna be let go. Calling it like it is right now, because I've seen
And
it happen so many times.
another franchise may have gotten a star player. But with
Mm-hmm.
that being said, jumping into our NBA segment, you know, game 3 of the NBA Finals, and the NBA season is wrapping up. And we saw it's right now, Indiana is winning the series 2-1. But let me give my overall thoughts on this series before I pass the mic to Benji. I'm going to say this.
Go ahead.
I think it's not that the Thunder cannot compete with the Pacers. In fact, they very much well can compete with the Pacers. Every game, aside from game 2, has been close. The Thunder, you can say the Thunder could have won game 1 and game 3, and this could be 3-0 right now. But this is where the issue lies. I believe the Thunder are losing these games because they cannot just win down the stretch. Game 1 and game 3 are my clear examples because game 2, they blew Indiana out the water. Game 1 and game 3, as the fourth quarter goes on, you start to look tired. And I praise the Thunder all past series that they look like well-oiled machine. The rotations were fast and everything. But Indiana is matching them with the rotations so well. In my opinion, I think the Thunder did not expect that. But with this being said, down the stretch, the Thunder are just looking sloppy in the fourth quarter. Offense isn't looking well, and you could very much well say that the Pacers are just playing amazing defense, which they are. Containing SGA in the fourth quarter last game was something incredible that I did not expect the Pacers to do. But the fourth quarter is just like that's the Pacers quarter, and it's like they really earned in my opinion the nickname the comeback kids. They really in the fourth quarter they really lock in my opinion, and really just close out the game. And I think if the Thunder are to win or not to win, but if the Pacers are to win the finals, it's gonna be solely because the Pacers know how to close games out better than the Thunder. And I'm not gonna take any away from the Thunder because SGA put up over 30 points first 2 games, and then last game put up 24. Almost had a 40 point in game 1. But like I keep saying, the issue and where I see the issue is the Thunder they just cannot close the game out, and the Pacers are closing these games out better. But Benji, your opinion?
Yeah, so you mentioned Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, kind of averaging 30 points here. He's having a historic playoff run already, so it's kind of surprising a little bit at least. I mean, the Pacers have been surprising everybody this whole playoff run. I mean, we've seen it here on the show plenty of times, including for myself. But as far as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander goes, he's currently tied with LeBron James and Michael Jordan for the most games with 30 plus points and 5 assists in a single NBA playoff run. He's at 11 games with that stat line right now. So this is just going to be a historical run for both of these teams, regardless of who wins the series. But as far as for the Pacers go as well, even with Halliburton, not having the most incredible game he's ever had sometimes, or the most incredible stat line that we see him sometimes put out there on the court, the Pacers still find a way to win in the fourth quarter, and that is really what is, this is coming down to, as Stu says. And before I pass this off to Adam, Adam mentioned before the show, as we were kind of chopping it up about the finals, that Shea was a little fatigued, and at the end of the game he admitted it, and it's just back to the drawing board for the Thunder, and we always see the Thunder bounce back after losses as well. So, Adam, what is your thoughts on this, and what have you seen so far from these NBA Finals?
So I mean, game one, at the end of the day, it was just like a back and forth death match, I'll say, and then Tyrese Halliburton just hit a dagger just inside the arc to end it. So I mean, that one could have gone either way. Obviously, the Thunder blew him out of the water in game two, but game three really opened my eyes because not did the Pacers just win, but they didn't quite blow them out, but they looked like they were going to win that entire fourth quarter. You just had so many good defensive plays from Miles Turner. Obi Toppin made some really nice defensive plays. Andrew Nemhard, I think, is like averaging like 3 steals in the closeout game 7 in the Eastern Conference Final. He had 6 steals, or not game 7, but game 6, yeah. Either way. And then you had Benedict Mathurin. Shout out to him because he had one of the best performances for a player coming off the bench in NBA Finals history. I think he was like the 3rd or 4th highest scorer ever. So that was amazing. That the reason I think the Thunder can still come back, and I still have Thunder in 6, which means they have to win 3 consecutive games, but I think they can do it because I don't see Mathurin doing this again. Tyrese Halliburton, Mathurin, and Siakam all shot over 50%, which is not going to happen every single game. Halliburton was 1 rebound short of a triple-double. That's also not going to happen every game. The 2010 assists, points and assists, yeah, that happens most games, honestly. But a big stat I saw was when the Pacers score over 110 points, they're 15-0 in this postseason. And then they're like 1-7 or 1-8 or something like that when they
Also
don't
with Caitlin
score
Clark in
over 110. Say that again?
I was going to say,
yeah.
also with Caitlin Clark in attendance, they've been undefeated.
Yep, 6-0 with Caitlin Clark in attendance as well. So, I mean, she's a big Pacers fan, and I mean, sometimes it's just some coincidental stuff, but it never hurts. Never hurts to have that on your side.
Can't blame that.
Yeah, like I said, I think the Thunder are still going to come back and win this, and that might even be like a bold take at this point, but playoff series are always just like a game of matchups and just adjusting. So, I mean, as long as they adjust and come right back and win the next game, and if they do so in dominating fashion, people will be already back on the Thunder bandwagon. But I just like that they're opening people's eyes. I just wish that they were getting more coverage, and we were not talking about where's Giannis going to go, where's KD going to go, like for like the last 2 days. Johnny, please settle. So I want to see more eyes on this, and I really, really do. Like it's such an epic series, and we're gonna get a first-time NBA champion, and people just don't care because it's not the big markets.
Dog got his opinion. Dog got his opinion. Yeah, I'm gonna touch base on that. Game one, you remember the last podcast I said game one is gonna be a toss up. It's really gonna determine who's gonna start off high. And Indiana started off high. Shout out to my guy Peliskis, Siakam. I can never say his name right. But game one he scored 19, 7 for 15 from the field, and 4 for 6 from the 3-point line. And Indiana, they took care of business in game one. Like you said, like we said before, this series is going to be one of the most competitive series we've ever seen. I'm just going to call it like it is. But like I said, game one, Indiana went 47.6% from field goal, 46.2% from 3 point, 25 turnovers, kind of high, but sometimes it's not really about the turnovers, it's just about how much you can overcome even with the turnovers. And then they had 56 rebounds compared to Thunder's 39. You know, I was expecting the Thunder to win game one because it's a home field advantage, but Indiana has shown once again we don't care who has home court. Just know we're gonna bring the heat, and they have brought it ever since this playoff thing even started. It
Hmm.
all started back when they were playing against the Bucks, and they beat them. And it came down to who did they play next? It was the Knicks. No, was it
Cat.
the Knicks? It was the
Cavs,
Cavs.
Nick.
Yeah, it was the Cavs. Wiped them out. I think Cavs only won one game that series, and
Yep.
then it
Yep.
went on to the Knicks. Like Indiana is constantly showing, and I'm gonna call it like it is. They are not here to play any games. Y'all want to consider? Y'all want to keep, putting us as underdogs? Cool. We just gonna keep showing, and it's just like I said in a group chat. Indiana is pulling up. They're showing out, and they're gonna keep doing it. But OKC defensively, man, they got they've had a big amount of slip ups, and it's showing because I've seen if your bigs cannot pick up on screens, that's a problem. Indiana, if you've seen their offense is mainly set up on screens and stuff like that. And OKC have bit on that every time. And there either be players open or the centers are like they're scared to go around and get a hand up. That's a problem. Because I'm such a big when it comes down to basketball, I'm such a big guy like I'm gonna have my bigs if there's a screen, pick the world up. I can't like there be times I've been seeing a lot of OKC guys trying to swing around, trying to get their arm up and stuff like that. Like, bro, help out. Like, and then every time the center will leave open lanes for an easy layup, like, and then sometimes the Pacers will rebound the Thunder. The Thunder need to get a little bit more physical, man. And I think that's starting to become a problem. And like I said before, Indiana has constantly shown that they are a little bit more physical than what OKC is claiming to be on paper. And like I said, if OKC, I still think OKC can win it too. But if OKC don't get physical, if they don't do better on defense, and then not only that, if they can just pick up on their shooting just a little bit, then this series, the Indiana's gonna win it. And this series might even be over before we even get to game six. I'm just saying. So I just really feel like the Thunder need to take advantage of game four. Because if the Thunder don't take advantage of game four, it is going to be already over. Because 81% of teams, when they're up 2-1, it normally about 81% of teams win the series. From the last post that I've seen, 81% of teams that are up 2-1 normally end up winning the series. So OKC, they need to wake up. They need to get a little bit more physical, like they were in the regular season. Bring that same party to the playoffs, to this series, because Jalen Williams, 26 points, game three. You know these guys, it don't need to be SGA. It don't need to just be just him. It need like get your depth out there, bro. Like that's what Indiana is doing. Like the last game I saw, they brought what's the guy name off the Indiana Pacers? I can't never say his last name right. Is it it started with an H, y'all. Hit me out.
It's all
Um
good.
what's his name, bro? I can't never say his name right. I'm learning his name. He's on Indiana.
Off the bench.
No, he's a starter.
Halliburton.
Halliburton. Yeah,
Oh, Halliburton. Okay, yeah.
yeah. Like that's their key star player, bro. And kind of like what one of the commentators said before I think it was game four. No, game three, before game three. My bad. Before game three, he was basically saying that if if Hollenberg does not score over at least if he doesn't score more points in the first half, then the game is technically already over. And we saw that game three, he was scoring. He was a big addition to the Pacers win. And then it came on to the second half. But OKC, they gotta take advantage of the second half, bro. You can't keep choking fourth quarters like that. It's just I just feel like if the Thunder don't take advantage of these fourth quarters, Indiana's gonna take over this series. the question here is, should we be concerned about OKC going into this series? Should we? I mean, I don't know, but
Yeah,
I think a little concern is starting to show because Indiana's starting to be a little bit more physical than OKC. And if OKC don't pick up that physicality, the series is over.
yeah, it's going to be
Just
interesting
saying.
to see how this kind of all plays out. But if you guys wanted to get into the MLB around the league and also the Stanley Cup Finals, maybe at the same time, we could maybe wrap up this episode. I mean, we have the Red Sox whooping the Yankees, of course, and the Mets cooking Adam and Deuce. What do you guys got for you guys' MLB power rankings now?
Well, I'm gonna start off by giving a quick shout out to the Toronto Blue Jays, and
Go
I'm gonna
Blue
say this:
Jays.
I, I'm really just started getting into the baseball thing, but it's so crazy that right as I start watching the Blue Jays, they continue to just win and win and win. I mean, 5 straight series wins. The team is hitting well. I come back. I'll come back to this later after Adam's thingy to pull up some
Mhm.
stats. But and to actually pull up the players. But I mean, the Blue Jays are playing well offensively and fielding the ball really well. I think our toughest series that we played was the Phillies, and we play them tomorrow for our next series. But tough series that we played was the Phillies, and they beat us the first game, but Blue Jays closed out the last two. And I'm gonna say this from there, the Blue Jays have just looked like I keep saying really offensive, like on the just hitting the ball. They look really good. I think I think it was like a few games back. I don't remember if I think it was I gotta look at it, but Alejandro Kirk hit a walk off
Mhm.
uh, RBI, and I that just probably made me like happy because I'm like, and I'm no shade on the Rangers, but we don't see the Texas Rangers doing this. But to
Mhm.
see the Blue Jays actually, the whole roster is the whole roster you can actually depend to hit the ball. That just means something because that shows that they're reliable. And in these clutch crunch time situations, the Blue Jays are putting up the hits to tie these games, to win these games. But I'm gonna pass the mic off to Adam before I give my top three Blue Jays players.
For sure. So I'll do power rankings in just a second, but I just want to give a quick shout out to Cal Raleigh, who is the best catcher in baseball. It's not even close. In fact, he's putting up one of the best catcher seasons, maybe the best catcher season in MLB history. Like we're
Mhm.
talking 150 years, like yeah, well over
That's
100
wild.
years of history, and like he's only trailing Aaron Judge in so many different stats, and Aaron Judge is just completely different because Aaron Judge is actually on pace to have the second most hits in a MLB season ever. He would match Ichiro's 242 hits back in like 2011 or something like that. So just wild
His
what Aaron
OPS
Judge is
is
doing.
crazy too. Yeah, his OPS too. He's like he's on pace to become one of three players for the Yankees
I've been
too to
paying
have that high of
attention.
OPS. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I
but
agree. I've been paying attention. Yeah,
yeah, and
No,
then
it's
as far
crazy
been
because
as
paying attention.
he's batting almost 400. Like, and then
yeah,
he's probably like
Mhm.
on base like 50% of the time basically after that. So it's
Yep.
yeah,
wild. It's
he's been a
Yeah.
monster this year. Hopefully the Red Sox adding some monsters here as well with Marcelo Mayer and Roman Anthony. Shout out to those guys. But yeah, Deuce.
for
So
sure.
Deuce, are you ready to give your top three power rankings?
Or here, do you want me to go? Do you want me to do the power rankings
Oh,
first?
sorry about that.
Yes, Adam, go and
Got
throw
you.
your power rankings, and then I'll come back with the.
All right. So number one, it's gonna be the Detroit Tigers. I got them remaining at one. They have the second most wins in the entire MLB, and they just look like they're clicking on all cylinders. One of the best starters in baseball. Just really good team all around.
Mhm.
Cubs moving all the way up to second. They're showing that they are for real. Pete Crow Armstrong and Seiya Suzuki. They're just they're amazing. Like Pete Crow Armstrong is probably like top three, top five in MVP voting, and yeah, Seiya Suzuki and him have an awesome relationship too. He like is Japanese, obviously, but he regards Pete Crow Armstrong as like his little brother, basically. So it's pretty cool their relationship. Number three is the New York Mets.
Let's go.
First 45 win or first team to 45 wins, which is really crazy.
Wow,
So
so
yeah, the Mets are showing they're for real as well. Yankees just dropping down a little bit into the fourth spot, but they're always going to remain top five as long as Aaron Judge is healthy. They've got plenty of other pieces too. Max Fried on the mound. They've they're a very well-rounded team as well. Dodgers are going to be at 5, just dropping a little bit, but they're supposed to get Ohtani back in the rotation in the next few weeks, if not next month. So, I mean, already having an MVP caliber season from the batting perspective, and then he's going to add in his crazy arms or add in his crazy pitching as well, which is usually like in like the 2 ERA range. Number 6 is the San Francisco Giants, like just trailing the Dodgers in for the division. That division is ridiculous because right behind them is the Padres. So to have 3 teams in the same division as top 7 teams is wild. Number 8 is the Cardinals. Number 9, as much as I hate to say this, is the Houston Astros, who have leapfrogged the Seattle Mariners. Mariners are 4-12 in their last 16. Astros have gotten really hot, and I'm just hoping that the Mariners don't fall too far behind before the All-Star break. And then rounding out the top 10 is the Philadelphia Phillies, but they did just put Bryce Harper on the IL, and it's his same wrist from last year, so that is never good news when you have nagging injuries like that. And I wanted to put an honorable mention with the Blue Jays. I could have put them at 10. They probably will pass the Phillies very soon, but they're 8-2 in their last 10. As you said, they're just very, very hot. And actually, I won't even take this from you. You can talk about the 3 players.
Yeah, so I think I'm gonna give my top 3 players that have really stood out to me. So the first one is Addison Barger or Barger. I don't know how to say it. Is it? I think it's Addison Barger, but he's hitting at
Barger, but I'm not sure.
265. Yeah, Addison Barger. He's hitting at 265, 22 RBIs, and 7 home runs. Now, this may not sound too impressive, but let me say this: he's been hitting very well over like the last, I'm gonna say 15 games. He's hit the ball consecutively. He's getting on base. He's scoring. He's getting the runs batted in. That is what you want to see in these young players. 2, Bo Bichette continues to just hit the ball well. I mean, I've been watching these games, and he's hitting at 275, 40 runs batted in, 8 home runs. And watching him, the way he's able to hit the ball and allow these scored runs to get for the Blue Jays is really important. And some of the games I've been watching, they've been close. And Bo Bichette will get on base. He'll get an RBI, and we'll go up 2-3 runs. That is important. It's separating. It's what's separating the score. And the last player that's really standing out to me, and a lot of Blue Jays fans know Alejandro Kirk. Very well hitter. He just had his RBI to win the game a few games ago, but he's hit the last 8 games. And to be that low in the batting lineup, but to consecutively hit the ball and score and get runs, that is just what stands out to me. So those are the 3 players that, for as of right now, are really standing out to me. And I'm gonna continue to note this: I'm still new to really watching this baseball like every day. So yes, there may be a few other players that y'all know stand out more, but these are just the 3 players that have really drawn my attention. I mean, I was just in the group chat the other day saying Addison Barger is my GOAT after Addison Barger and Bo Bichette are my GOAT after watching them,
Yeah, Bo's
hit
tough.
these RBIs and allow these scores. But closing this out, Adam is going to jump into some NHL Stanley Cup talk, and we'll go from there.
All right. So game 3 just happened a couple days ago. What time is it? It is, oh yeah, so we're actually going to have game 4 starting in about 40 minutes. So tune in if you've never watched NHL before. Will not be disappointed. First game went to overtime, and then we had a clutch goal. Connor McDavid, best player in the world, gets it to Leon Draisaitl, one of the best goal scorers in the entire league, and won it 4-3 in overtime. Game 2 also went to overtime. So like I'm saying, this series is electric. Hits, fast-paced action. It's amazing. Second game, it ended up being the Panthers that won. I think it was 5-4 in overtime. And then game 3, if you're an Oilers fan, it was not so fun to watch. It was actually a much closer game than the score would let on, but Panthers just kind of, the puck was going the right way, and in a game where you're playing with like a puck that's like a few inches in size, little breaks can go one way or another for teams very often. So they won 6-1. So right now it's 2-1 Panthers. We got one more game in Florida before it'll go back to Edmonton. So Florida was able to steal one game in Edmonton, so it's really, really important for the Oilers to come out strong today and put up a good showing and hopefully steal that game back, because then they'll have home ice advantage again going into Game 5. But I still think this year is going to go 6 or 7. But if the Panthers win today, it's going to be really tough sledding for the Oilers going forward.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say this before we close out. I watched Game 3. I believe that was Game 3, the last game they played. Yeah, I
Yep.
watched Game 3 of the NHL Stanley Cup, and I would say that was probably one of the most intense overtimes in any sport I have ever watched. I mean, I was just up on the edge of my seat, like,
Yeah.
are they going? Who's going to score next? And it's like
very
so
interesting.
fast.
Very interesting.
Yes, it's
Nah,
so
hockey's tough.
fast paced, and the puck is so small to me that it's
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
it's like it seems so easy to score, but it's not, and the goal is
Mhm.
so small, and they're
Yeah,
I
the
don't know.
goalie takes up most of it. They're usually like
Yeah, so
6'5".
Yeah.
yeah, so just as like a
I would
really
have
as
never
a like
scored.
I'm not saying like I'm a first time viewer, but like as a person that really watched this game for the first time, it kind of really did have me on the edge of my seat. And I always
Yeah,
keep saying, even
I'm
though I'm
definitely
not,
gonna watch. I'm gonna watch.
yeah,
let's
and
go.
I say I'm not like the biggest NHL fan, but I always say this: they have the best playoff atmosphere out of any American sports, in my opinion. I think football probably comes a little bit close, but NHL, that atmosphere is just different. But as we wrap up this show, we're on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Follow us on all those socials to stay up to the latest info, post, videos, reels, all that. Next week on next week's show, will we have new NHL winners? Will we have a new NBA Finals champion? That will be interesting to see. We'll
True,
cover
it's
all that on
possible.
the next episode. As always, stay tuned. Thanks from inside the locker room, and
Thank you
y'all enjoy
guys.
y'all's day.
Good seeing y'all today.